Good morning, everyone. Nice to see some very familiar faces, some unknown faces, but a big crowd today, so I'm very gratified. Can I just see hands up of anyone who has actually visited a Pueblo Mágico aside from Ajijic? Okay, well that's about 90%, I'd say. So I'm going to kind of turn the tables. Philip told me that I have Q&A at the end. I'm going to do a reverse Q&A. And I would like to ask you guys some questions, some feedback, especially since so many of you have experiences. Too loud?
Move it away from your mouth. Too loud. Too near you.
How's that? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, good, because it was loud for me too. So, I have a little helper here who's going to pass out some papers. I have a few pens. Hopefully anybody who wants to have a question has a pen, but if you really need one, we can help you out and please return it. So I have two questions basically that I would like feedback from my audience here. How many magic towns have you visited, and which was your favorite and why? And the second question is, if you were in charge of Ajijic's Pueblo Mágico program, what would you do to make it more appealing to visitors and more livable and prosperous for the inhabitants? So you get to pretend like you're the person in charge. There's a lot of different layers to who's in charge, but just pretend for a moment that you're the Pueblo Mágico god of Ajijic. Okay. As mentioned here in the introduction by Philip, thank you, the Programa Pueblos Mágicos was launched on October 5th of 2001 by Mexico's Ministry of Tourism, Secretaría de Turismo, during the administration of President Vicente Fox. Louder. Lower. Okay. Too loud. All right. Is that okay? Right. The first nombramiento in that first year, in 2001, was Huasca de Ocampo Hidalgo. Anybody ever hear of that place? No. It's a mountain village in the state of Hidalgo. It's about 2 hours away from Mexico City and 16 kilometers from Pachuca, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the state capital. What stands out there is it is the location of the very first haciendas in Mexico in the colonial era, related to mining and processing silver mostly. It has some interesting natural attractions, which includes these hexagonal columns of basaltic rock, which is basically hardened lava, that are 30 to 50 meters in height. And you can look at them from above or from the bottom of this ravine where they end up. And I think in some times of year there are actually waterfalls there. Things that people do to go there is hiking and horseback, outdoor activities. It's a relatively small town, and the downtown area is, there's lots of little shops and food and the usual thing you'll find at any tourist destination. Something kind of unique about this place is they have the Museo de Duendes, which is about mystical characters. It's about elves and fairies and trolls and duendes. What are they? Anyway. So that's kind of, I don't know that, but supposedly these little spirits live in the surroundings. So it's it's part of their mythology, I guess. So that makes it kind of unique. And also in 2001, 3 other towns were added to the list of Pueblo Mágicos. Caltitan, which is an island in Nayarit, Tepoztlán, Morelos, and Real de 14, which is in San Luis Potosí. In total, during the Fox administration through 2006, 23 Pueblos Mágicos were designated. The next president, Calderon, added around 52.
Oh, God.
which is a lot, yeah. Peña Nieto, who was next, gave, during his administration, they gave out 38 designations. And AMLO, does everybody know who AMLO is? Okay, he's the president, in case you don't know. But it's so, yeah. Andres Manuel Lopez over there is kind of a mouthful, so AMLO, I will refer to him more than once. 56 in his administration, and he has about 6 months to go. 45 were added last June. So right now, there is a total of 177 magic towns all over the country, and there's at least one in every state. Next. What is the purpose of the Pueblo Mágico program? The idea, the concept, and I think it's an interesting one and a good one, was to have a structured way of diversifying tourism in the interior of Mexico, or away from places that were already, well-known tourist destinations. An alternative to beach resorts like Cancun and Acapulco and Huatulco and Puerto Vallarta. All those all-inclusive places where tourists go and they never leave the premises, everything's paid for, they get free drinks and entertainment and all that stuff. So they're not really visiting Mexico. It's, sort of like Disneyland. And so to get the designation or the nombramiento, it was for singular locales that had something interesting or interesting characteristics related to their history, their culture, their artisanía, their crafts, festivities and traditions, gastronomy, and also looking into sort of the new trend for adventure and ecotourism. In order to qualify, it had to be in a municipality, and most of them are municipalities, but we're an exception. At least 20,000 inhabitants. And it had to be no more than 2 hours travel by land to a major destination, like Guadalajara or Mexico City or some other place where it was easy to get there. Prior to the COVID mess, the outbreak of COVID, tourism in Mexico ranked 7th as a tourism destination worldwide. And about 41 million visitors a year. And the product from tourism, economically, is about 8.6% of the gross national product. So it's, it's a significant thing. In the beginning, they had very strict criteria for giving away these nombramientos. So they were kind of have been watered down over time. So it's not as strict as it used to be. Oh, I forgot to mention here that the aim here was to boost the economy in these little towns, job creation, and encourage investment, which would be from businesses. In San Miguel de Allende, I'm talking again about the criteria, San Miguel de Allende was named a Pueblo Mágico in 2002. But a few years later, 2008, UNESCO named it declared it as a site of cultural patrimony of humanity. So they took away the title. They switched it to Pueblo Mágico. They took away Pueblo Mágico and made it a historic UNESCO site. Now those first places that were named, Mezcaltitlán and Tepoztlán, lost their nombramiento in 2009 because they did not adhere to the regulations, the guidelines. I don't know exactly what they did, I haven't researched that part, but somehow, they screwed up and they lost the title. And Papantla also Papantla and Veracruz, they lost their title in that year in 2009. Tepoztlan got it back the next year, so they straightened themselves out. Papantla regained its nombramiento in 2012, and Mezcatitlan didn't get theirs back until 2020. They had some real serious problems there, I'm aware of, without going into details. One of the most important factors of being a Pueblo Mágico was to get the community involved. This is not just a government thing, but it's supposed to, bring the people in. And I guess in that regard, I'll get back to that. Okay, so the federal government early on was provided funding, a lot of funding, for infrastructure and promotion and generally making these towns better. But AMLO decided to drop the funding. He completely took Pueblo Mágico funding out of the budget in 2019. Well, Jalisco responded to that by saying, okay, we'll fund it. So they have a budget for Pueblos Mágicos. Within their entire tourism budget, there is a segment that is just for the Pueblo Mágico programs. They stepped up to the plate. So that's why we actually get some money. Jalisco has 12 Pueblos Mágicos. The first one was Tapalpa in 2002. Tequila in 2005, Mazamitla in 2003, Mazamitla in 2005, San Sebastián de la Oeste in 2011, Lagos de Moreno in 2012, Talpa de Allende and Mascota got the name in 2015, Tlaquepaque in 2018, Ajijic in 2020, and last year, in the big AMLO package, we got Cocula, Sayula, and Temacapulín. I have a hard time with that sometimes. So I'm going to give you my point of view on this whole thing. I have been to 30 Pueblo Mágicos. I got a long way to go to get them all. And I don't think I'm going to make it. And I've been to 10 out of 12 of the Pueblos Mágicos in Jalisco. So I'm kind of familiar. And because I'm interested in the subject, I'm kind of nosy. So I'm always asking questions and trying to compare the situations that I see in those Pueblo Mágicos with Ajijic. Cleanliness being one, orderliness and that kind of stuff. My whole concept of Pueblo Mágico has evolved over time because originally I'm envisioning a little town, a little village, that has a lot of charm and something really different that you don't find in other places. But the word Pueblo has another meaning. It means people. It means the common people. So El Pueblo de Ajijic is a place and a population. And that, again, going to back how important it is for the people of a place to be involved in the whole Pueblo Mágico project is, that's important. So I have discovered over time that many of the places, I originally envisioned, how many of you have been to Tapalpa or Mazamitla? Okay, almost everybody. That was kind of what my vision, that's a Pueblo Mágico. It's got these rustic little streets, there's common characteristics, there's something, very rustic and very, a very definite identity that separates it from other places, which actually almost every place in Mexico has a very distinct identity. So then I discovered that there's a lot of places that are big towns and cities. Tlaquepaque is part of the metro area of Guadalajara. That doesn't sound to me like a pueblo. But actually, if you go in the core part of the city and they have what they would call the polígono, which is the defined area of what actually is the Pueblo Mágico aspect. Okay, it has certain characteristics that fit in. So it turns out that it's the unique identity of these places, the special attributes or the core values and attractions that make it a Pueblo Mágico. The most recent place that I visited is Tepoztlan.
Is what?
Tepoztlan in the state of Morelos. Thank you, Greg, for getting me there. And it was interesting because it was like, to me, it had a lot of the essence of Ajijic. It's very similar to Ajijic in many aspects. It's almost like they took Ajijic and they just put it up and down all these hills, because it's like San Francisco. It's not a place you can walk around. People complain how hard it is to walk there. Try it, folks. It's, if you don't, the only way you can get around is a taxi. Right in the downtown area, you can walk around. So it's sort of a mix between. It's a bit bohemian. There's a spiritual context. People go there to do spiritual things, spa treatments, and it's all deluxe spas, and we're not talking about funky things. A second place that I went recently on a trip with Greg was a town called Jalisco. It's in the state of Puebla. Now, we didn't get to see a whole lot because we were kind of, in a rush to get to some other places. So it's just a quick stop there. The downtown area was very attractive. We did not get a chance to see what it's famous for, which is they grow a lot of flowers there. So we were kind of just made a quick stop in the downtown area. I was a little shocked to see that they had a famous coffee shop chain located in the kiosk on the plaza. We don't usually see businesses in the bandstand, but there it was. And then we sat down and had lunch at one of the restaurants right on the plaza, which was a disaster. I always, when I go to a Pueblo Mágico, I want to try the typical cuisine of the place. So I'm looking at the menu, what's this famous for? And what I ordered was practically inedible. They were some sort of hard taco things. It wasn't memorable. Well, it was memorable in how bad it was. And one of our traveling companions got food poisoning there. So, not one of my favorite destinations. So as I said, when I visit a Pueblo Mágico, I'm always kind of looking for how it compares to Ajijic, what kind of problems they have, or what, what's good. Anyway, so I'm looking for things that are interesting about the history, the culture, the crafts, the clothes, and especially the food. I love trying different kinds of Mexican food that you cannot find here. So that's always, at the top of my list. I mean, I went to Puebla one time, which is not Pueblo Mágico, it should be, but one time with my daughter when I was a kid. And I timed it so that I was there for the season of chiles en nogada, and I had enough time to sample mole like every day. So those are the specialties there. I prefer kind of, how can I put this, economical hotels. I'm not looking for cheap. I'm looking for identity. I'm looking for something distinctive. I don't want to stay at the Sheraton or, any of these typical places. I'd rather have an interesting atmosphere, something like an old hacienda or a home that's been turned into a hotel rather than a fancy hotel. I like it to be in the center of town so that you can get around easily. And okay, so here's some of my favorite experiences. Of course, I love Ajijic for a lot of reasons. My dear friend Annette here and I and another friend went to San Cristobal de las Casas a few years ago. It was my expectation of a real magical town. I don't know why I had this idea of what it was, and I was a little bit shocked to discover it's the downtown area is in the middle of a pretty big city. When we got to the outskirts, it was like, oh man, this could be anywhere. Oxos every 3 blocks. That's not my idea of a Pueblo Mágico. But since Annette was familiar, had been there many times before, she was great at kind of saying, well, we got to go there, she knew, the hot spots that we had to hit to really get the essence. And it was a fabulous experience. And I was introduced to my favorite Mexican alcoholic beverages called Bosch. and it's made, I think it's based on corn. It's as potent as tequila, but better. And I don't know anywhere you can get it here. I did get 2 little bottles from a guy that was up on the plaza a few weeks ago. A friend Gonzalez brought in, and they had a little bottle, and I was like, yay! So I might have to get back there or have some surrogate get me some more bottles because it's hard to come by. What was interesting is when we took some little outside trips, they have fabulous transportation. They have these little cooperativas, that like little VW vans. It costs you a few pesos. You get in there and you can go all these different places, elbow to elbow with the local people, which is fun. And we took a trip to San Juan Chabula. That to me is a very magical and mystical place. No Oxos. They had a little store called Oso, O-S-S-O, which was practically next door to the church, and that's where I went to buy these little candles that the people use for their ceremonies inside the church. It's an amazing place. It's very authentic. You know, it's extremely indigenous. It's not spoiled by modern stuff. So, you know, that to me was the real highlight of the trip. We bought so much stuff. I had to pay extra to get my bags back. Because you couldn't resist. I mean, you know, the artesanías, the clothes, everything is extremely reasonable.
The name again. The name of the town.
San Juan Chabula.
What state?
And it's just fascinating.
What state?
Do a Google on that one.
Can you spell it?
What's that?
Can you spell Chabula? The end of it?
Can you spell Chabula?
Chabula, C-H-A-M-U-L-A. Chabula. And it really, really has some fascinating stuff. I mean, you know, the people in there are really unique. And you have to get permission to go into the church.
Exactly.
It's because their rituals there are just extraordinary. Anyway.
No photos. No photos.
No photos. No photos. You just have to live the experience, you know. Your Kodak moment is in your brain. Another of my favorite places is a little town called Amatlan de Cañas. That's located just outside of Jalisco in the state of Nayarit. It is a Pueblo Mágico. I wasn't sure that it was. But my first trip there was when my daughter was a kid. And she was in a Escaramuza horseback riding team. And we went to do a presentation, not in Amatlan, but in another town, I forget what it's called. Eh? No, but anyway, doesn't matter. So it was an amazing experience because we had like, I don't know how many trucks and horses and kids, and we had to take this dirt road to get to Amatlan, to get where we were going. And we get to the end, and there's a toll booth. It's brecha, they call it, alto brecha, I called it. Does anybody know what that means? Brecha is like a dirt road, and you know, it's like super highway. They have now paved that road, by the way, but this was an experience. So we pay our toll, and we, you know, drive into this thing with all these horse trailers and kids and whatnot, and it was like, oh my God, this is like Ajijic 50 years ago. It was so untouched, and I've been back since, and they, you know, kind of, you know, buffed it up a bit, but it's still a beautiful place. And the most amazing thing is we had to go across this river that runs right through the center of town. It was early in the morning. It's a thermal river, so there was this vapor, this steam coming out of the river, and it was like, wow, this really is extraordinary. It's a charming little town. And they have some interesting food there too. That's where they have the tamales, what do they call them? I don't know, they're like gelatin, they're really interesting. Mitla, Oaxaca.
Could you spell the name of that place?
I need to spell that?
She wants you to say San Juan de las Terras.
It's called Amatlan de Cañas. I have a joke about that, but I don't think anybody will get it, so never mind. Mitla, Oaxaca. Some of these places I haven't been to for years. I mean, but way before Pueblo Mágicos existed, I did some exploring in Mexico. I need to go back and see how these are now. Mitla is one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites I've ever been to. They have it's like the temple was like made like a jigsaw puzzle. Little rocks that are not cemented together, they're all set together. If an earthquake hits, they just jiggle and everything's fine. So that's a cool place. And Michoacan, Pátzcuaro, Tzintzuntzan, almost any place you go in Michoacan, magic town or not, is magical. So, you know, I've been to 6 out of 10 of the magic towns and some other places too. Michoacan is the bomb. Mazamitla, again, was like sort of my concept. This is a Pueblo Mágico. It's a beautiful place. It's very tranquil. Never go on a Sunday. It's horrible because there's so many people there, and these little ATVs, you know, these all-terrain things, they rent those out and they go roaring through town, right through the middle of town. It's awful. They have great food there. All these wonderful products they make, you know, preserves they make out of the fruit and stuff that grows there. Great cheese, cream, all that dairy stuff. And outside, on the outskirts, there's all these beautiful areas which are private homes, weekend homes, and cabins you can rent. And it's just beautiful mountain terrain. I grew up in Colorado, so it's like, oh, it's red dirt and the smell of the pine trees, just like real nostalgia. But it's a lovely place. But don't go on a Sunday. Next items on my agenda, if I can survive and do it, would be Huasca del Campo, the very first Pueblo Mágico. What I've read about it, it sounds absolutely fascinating. I would love to go there. And Sisal. I don't think I mentioned Sisal. That should have been there somewhere. I'll get back to the Sisal. Oh, and Cholula in Pueblo is also an amazing place. It's the biggest pyramid in the world and a church on top. And you can go inside the pyramid. It's also famous for fiestas. If you don't like fiestas, don't go there. There's like so many, they say they practically have a fiesta every day of the year. So, it's party town.
Where is that?
Cholula.
Outside Puebla.
It's just like a half an hour from Puebla. It's really nearby, and it very famous point of history because of what happened during the conquest. There, some really amazing stuff happened there. My pal Tony Burton, I asked him, "What do you think about Pueblos Mágicos?" And he said he would qualify as the most genuine Pueblos Mágicos, Real de 14, which is pretty much a ghost town in San Luis Potosí. He also agrees about Cholula. Tezquisquiapan, I can't say that word either, it's such a long one. Tezquisquiapan in Querétaro is another amazing place. Loreto in Baja California, and Sombrerete in Zacatecas. If you want to know, ask me. I don't have a lot of characteristics to explain about that because I got other things to say. I titled this talk Hocus-Pocus. Why? Because the way the government has handled this whole thing, it's like they can wave a magic wand by decree. And to me, the whole magical thing has to really spring up from the pueblo, from the people, and from the place. When they had this big surge under Calderon, there was a lot of criticism because the criteria, again, started to get kind of watered down. It didn't have to meet all these requirements to not only apply for and get the designation, but to keep it as well. Because as I mentioned, several places have actually lost it because they didn't meet the criteria. Here's the couple. So, there seem to be political motivations for the naming of the Pueblos Mágicos rather than really the core values that they're supposed to be looking for. And I think a really good example is Temacapulín, which is one of the latest ones here in Jalisco. One of the ones that AMLO named last year. Political. Totally political. Because that's the town that was going to be flooded to build the Zapotillo Dam. And that was a big fight that went on for a long time, and Ablo is the hero that saved Tamaca. I haven't been there. I don't think it has a whole lot of magic to it, but it's, except for the fact that it lives. It was not flooded. Okay, yeah, so getting to the case of Sisal. Sisal is one of the Pueblo Mágicos in Yucatan. It got the nombramiento in 2020. It was kind of forced on the people by the state government, because the state government has a role in getting it. I mean, you have to have, the municipality has to file a lot of documentation to get it, the state has to back it, the Congress has to back it, and you know, and then it's up to the federal government to decide it. So apparently it was the state government that was really pushing to get Sisal in there. Sisal is a beach town, basically. It's a fishing town. It's close to Merida. I think it's like, I don't know, less than half an hour away from Merida. So it's an accessible place. But the people there said, hell no, we don't want this. Because you're going to come in and wreck our town. You're going to give away all the waterfront property to the big investors who are going to build all these resorts, and that's not what we want for our town. But magic wand, it got the nombramiento, and it's a Pueblo Mágico. And from what I've seen, on the little research I've done on the internet, is like, I want to go there. And again, because the people, I think, have made an attempt to kind of maintain its identity. Okay, here's the big deal, and thank you, Greg, because he gave me a tip on an academic study that was done in Pueblo Mágico by a couple from the University of Krakow, of all places. It's one of the few research pieces you can find in English. It was done in 2021, so it's fairly recent. And the title is, Are Pueblos Mágicos Really Magic? Tourism Development in the Context of Quality of Life. This, again, is the core thing, and I think it has a lot to do with our own town, Ajijic. The whole concept was to boost the economy, job creation, make life better for the inhabitants. That's number one. Because, you know, whatever is generated in the place, it's not going back to the federal government. I mean, they may get some taxes. But, you know, it's supposed to benefit the town, the people. And so this study, this couple, they studied 26 Pueblo Mágicos that got designations between 2001 and 2009. And they did a lot of analysis of existing research on the Pueblo Mágico projects all over the country, individual towns, big scope. The idea of sustaining tourism development rests on 4 basic principles, it says. The natural protection of the natural environment, community preservation, cultural preservation, and economic growth. Those are the 4 pillars of that. And their research showed the Pueblo Mágico program has not substantially improved the quality of life for the people, for the local people in the town. And in fact, in some cases, the quality of life has declined. In the case of Ajijic, I haven't been able to find one single business person or resident that has seen a benefit from Pueblo Mágico. And on the contrary, some of them think it hasn't been bad for us. So, does Ajijic fit the profile? I'm about to wrap this up. By the way, again, you know, people are taking notes. Remember, the Q&A is on you this time. Okay. I've been here 51 years. The same amount of time that I discovered this morning, same amount of time Neil James lived here. She lived here for 51 years. I've just finished 51 years living here. The dust of Ajijic is on my heart. And again, it's the town, but it's the people. I have, my friends, my family is here in Ajijic. So, I have a lot emotionally and spiritually invested in this town. So, Ajijic kind of is lacking in terms of historical sites. There's not much you can say. It's like, oh yeah, let's go here. There's no pyramids. We've got a little chapel. We've got a little church. We have a former convent that's a private home you can't go to. We have petroglyphs that are on private property you can't see. So that's kind of sad. The lake and the mountains, we have this beautiful ecosystem, but it's in danger. Again, because of too much growth and climate change and you name it. So our natural attributes are kind of dicey at this point. The lake is in pretty bad shape right now, but it's not alone. Lakes all over Mexico are drying up. I've just seen things that Pascuaro is dry. Pascuaro, such a beautiful lake. The only other place in Mexico where they have whitefish, and they've been having to raise it, in fish farms. They're trying to do it here. Whitefish, like when I came here, whitefish was like the thing to have to eat here. It was fabulous. Can't get it anymore. On the culture side, I think you guys a lot going for it. We have unique traditions. We have charming people, and I think the art factor is really major here. I mean, we have a long history of culture in terms of the visual arts. All these murals all over. I love the fact people, Mazamitla and Tapalpa have like a one color scheme. That's part of its identity. Ajijic's identity is the friggin' rainbow, right? And there have been people who have suggested that they should a certain palette or, no. I mean, I will be the first person to march on City Hall and say, you cannot limit the color scheme in Ajijic. That is part of its identity and part of its charm. And if you look at the Pueblo Mágico logo, it's a pinwheel of all these colors. I'm getting chills. It's Ajijic, totally, in that respect. What we've had problems with is the government. Okay, the state of Jalisco has picked up some tab to do some things. What do we have to show for that? We got a bunch of garbage containers. We got some crappy little signs over here now that even the one that points at Lake Chapala Society says Chapala Social Club or something like that. It doesn't even have that name right. And when they first put the signs in, some of them were actually pointing in the wrong direction. I don't think the state, whatever amount of money they put in here, has done us a whole lot of good. And, hand me my bag. I'm getting to the end. I'm taking Q&A time. So I noticed around, it's like, okay, if I want to find out about Ajijic, what kind of material can I get? Thank you, darling. Well, our little tourist stand, which the state government now pays for these 4 supposed agentes turísticos, which are like little guides. There's a little booth down there at the Malecon. This is all they had. Is that helpful? Not in my mind. Here's this lovely tourist map, which has all these little QR codes. I don't know about you, but I'm not big on QR. I want a map. I want a list. Where are the restaurants? Give me help. They do have some maps around town. I'll grant them that. But it was a couple of years ago that the head of tourism from Guanajuato came here and they gave a presentation at LCS. Amazing. This is what he left. Each of these is a magazine about a different Pueblo Mágico. This is so cool. This is so helpful. It tells you everything, not everything, but I mean there's photographs and it tells you where to go and where the attractions are and little maps and everything really you need. I guess I'm old-fashioned, but I like that. I also have this source. This is Mexico Desconocido, a fabulous magazine, and they put out Pueblo Mágicos issue. I can't remember when that was. It's been a while because there were only 111 Pueblo Mágicos at that time. And again, it's kind of helpful. It kind of gives you an idea. Lots of really nice colored pictures, but not really a whole lot of information that is useful. You really got to do your internet Google search to find out the things you want to know. And Ajijic also has this lovely little thing that's called Ribera Chapala Antiturista. Well, isn't that, appealing? So it is some sort of off the beat kind of things. It has a nice little map, and but it's kind of what do you call it? I don't know. It's, I think, for young people that want to do something a little out of the mold. Here's something I discovered last week, because I went to the tourism office in Chapala, and they did have a little booklet. Where'd that go? They did have a little booklet just about the Pueblos Mágicos, which is nice. Again, kind of cursory, not a whole lot of information, but at least it covers all the Pueblo Mágicos. And I was talking to the guy at Patty, who's the kind of the mainstay there at the tourism office, and she told me they put in this big map. When you drive into Chapala and you go through these curves, we used to call it the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They put up this gigantic map, almost the size of like this tent, right? Huge map. Backwards. It was made to be oriented to be put on the north side and facing the south. Because if you look at the map, the arrow says, here's Chapala, here's Ajijic, and the arrow says, Hocus-Pocus! La Marca! It's those kind of government errors, okay, that really are kind of disturbing. Okay, I'm getting yanked, so that's it. So I would really appreciate anybody that really thinks, you could be the boss, what you think we could do to really make this town magical. Yep.
Thank you, Dale. Thanks so much. So we've got 10 minutes left. Don't move. This is your chance to participate as well. Okay. So if you have questions, and what are we doing with the pieces of paper? Are we?
My little helper here will go around and collect them.
Okay. So if you have questions, please raise your hand. Wait for the mic to come, and we'll interrogate Dale.
Wait, I'll leave it.
All right.
Yes. Oh, wait for the mic.
Okay. My question is on, not my question, but my statement is on a piece of paper. I went to Mezzamilia in 2019, and they had this fantastic festival. They had music, they had craftspeople. The town was just glowing, just beautiful. The church, the plaza. It was wonderful. I loved it. I've never found another place like that.
Okay.
But Ajijic, if they could do something like that, I know we went for the weekend, and if Ajijic could put together a weekend of artisans and craftspeople and food, because the tapatios come all the time, but this would be just something really special and magical to show off Ajijic.
Okay, I have two comments on that. One, we don't have space for a massive event. Where are they going to park? I mean, you just drive into town trying to find a parking place. That's a challenge enough. And the other thing is, unfortunately, Ajijic doesn't have much in the way of its own crafts. Or its own gastronomy. I mean, we have pantachuag, but big deal, right? Ingrid here, whose mother-in-law started the teladas here, I think it's one of the few things that's an authentic local craft, but that's going away. But that's about it. I mean, we don't have pottery or look around for souvenirs. What's actually made here? What isn't some commercial magnet or something like that? So unfortunately, there's a thing over there. That's my comment on that. We just don't have the space for that kind of thing, at least not right now. If they had a better transportation system and we could park everybody over there at Dobolandia and bus people in, that would be a different story. And we could, I mean, because they have had like, you know, thematic festivals like the Chocolate Wine and Coffee Festival, which, you know, a little crowded, but you know, it's something different. But again, not much in the way of local stuff. Everything was brought in from somewhere else. Almost everything. You know, crappy beats.
There are lots of local fiestas.
Yes.
You know? I mean, every part of Ajijic has their own.
Yeah, what you're saying is that all parts of Ajijic do have their own fiestas.
Every part of
Every barrio in Ajijic has its saint and its festival. And then made up a few, like the January 1st parade, which is a hoot. And, you know, there's plenty of festivity, but it's not a massive event of what you're talking about.
don't want massive events.
Well, that's you. Anybody else?
Any other questions? Okay, here we go.
So you said in the research project that was done that the livelihood of the people had not improved. And that's kind of surprising in a way, because if tourism increases, then people get more business. The locals get, you know, the restaurant business, the tour business. So I'm wondering if you have any insight about why
Because I really don't think we've had that big of a boost in tourism. Again, probably the only ones that have benefited is the restaurant sector. But look at how unstable that is. Because every week we get a new restaurant, and all the gringos are rushing off, you know, to the bright new shiny thing, and somebody else closes the doors. We don't have enough people, and you know, fortunately, we have people from Guadalajara that really sustain a lot of business. I have business people here who know that, you know, they actually earn more from the people from Guadalajara than they do from the local people on, you know, on a steady business basis. But I think that's the main problem. I mean, I have talked to, you know, lots of people who own businesses right here on the main street, and they haven't really seen any benefit economically. They're pretty much the same as it was before Pueblo Mágico. And yeah, probably there's been some job creation because of new restaurants opening. And I think there obviously has been some investment with all this, you know, urban growth and new living places and new rental places and a lot of places that don't fit architecturally into the scheme of Ajijic, which really ticks me off. I think that, you know, the government has failed to regulate that aspect, which once was a requirement. They had to have an urban development plan for the Pueblo Mágico, and this government, we've had all this friction between City Hall and the supposed Citizens Committee. Nobody's done anything of significance. They don't see eye to eye. They're jealous of one another, and I don't see that a whole lot has been accomplished. I'm told that tomorrow they're going to name the new Citizens Committee. I have no idea what that means. But because the Citizens Committee doesn't have any, they can't spend money. They can't handle money at all. It's basically an advisory group that represents the people of the town. And I don't see that committee has fulfilled its function at all. I think they could have done a lot of initiatives, and they just, I mean, they've gone to some of these meetings with the state government, the conferences, and blah blah blah. I don't think they brought a whole lot home. Oh, I just have to mention one other thing. I just found out that the state government has really substantially reduced its budget for the Pueblos Mágicos. Okay, it was like 5.2 million pesos a couple of years ago. Then it went up to 9, and that was divided between what was then 9 Pueblos Mágicos or whatever it was. Now they're 12, and they've cut it back to what it was a few years ago, to like 5 million pesos. So by my calculation, the best that Ajijic can hope for is about 443,000 pesos, which is a drop in the bucket. Supposedly what they're gonna spend it on is improving garbage collection and management, or solid waste as they call it. We need that, no question. And doing some analysis of the traffic problems, mobility issues. Oh, analysis, thank you very much. How much is that gonna cost and what is it gonna accomplish? So I'm a little skeptical.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We've got one here. There you go. If you can stand, that would be helpful so people could see it. Thank you.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm not sure I've expressed this properly, but one of my understandings about why Ajijic was given Pueblo Mágico status was the probably best example of positive relationships between expats and local Mexican people. Am I absolutely off base with that?
I don't think so.
Nothing to do with it.
I don't think
No.
so.
'Cause
I
think-
mean, this is an important destination for retirees, but that's a different kind of tourism, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
And they call it, retirement tourism, but it's not tourism. I don't think,
So it's all about money.
I don't think so, that was an important factor. I mean, they were looking at, do you have the cultural characteristics, do you have the traditions, do you have the, the basic criteria?
I think
And
they made it up.
And they came once, when the first time they applied, and the government threw together this whole dog and pony show, and I'm going oh, they're looking at things that they don't like, which is again, it's a dirty town. There's no efficient, trash management. I don't think that these containers they put everywhere have been very helpful. They kind of make the town look worse, from my point of view. Ambulantaje is one of the things, which is street vendors. In Pueblos Mágicos that are well managed, there's a sort of a unifying factor. They kind of look alike, and the ones here are just really tacky. The little alleyway off the plaza, which they call the Camino del Artesano, that has a little bit of charm to it. But I mean, look everywhere you turn, there's some taco stand here or something else there, and a unifying factor that gives you some kind of identity, I think, would be a good thing.
Got another question here, Dan?
I guess the first comment I would make would be in terms of the effect of gentrification in the community. And so what's happening basically is older homes are getting replaced by condominiums and things of that type. That is good to some degree, but what happens is that people make money off the sale of the home, but they can't go anywhere else because they can't afford anywhere else.
Absolutely.
So that is a consideration that you have to think about in the process of approving various condominiums and other projects. What I would say is that, because I walk around here a lot, is that I really like the murals and the various statues people put up, and I think that's really cool. I don't know if you can do this here. I have no idea what to recommend, okay? I was actually, in my background, was city planning, but I don't know this area. You could have a program sponsoring those types of things. They're very, very simple, actually, and they do it in some sort of common way. And I would say that having a common theme is a good thing, but at the same time, I think it's important to remember that this is a community that has horses, that has dogs, that has roosters, and it's a Mexican community, and for people who live here, it's nice to have that and retain that.
Okay, totally agree with you on the gentrification situation. It's obviously happening here, and we're part of that problem. We're the main part of that problem, although more and more people are coming from Guadalajara and other places to live here. But the growth of all these gated communities, which are really taxing our infrastructure, and again, making life in the village unaffordable for the local people. And that is it's a problem in Chapala too, it's not just, but the gentrification factor is huge here. And again, this is one of the downsides of the whole thing. Not necessarily because of the Pueblo Mágico designation, but because the government has said, oh yeah, let's bring more foreigners in because that's a lot of tax money for us. And it has a good side, but that's a real problem. And as far as the murals, I could not agree with you more. I've been kind of nagging since this whole thing started that they're supposed to make a catalog so you could like take a walking tour and find all these amazing murals.
Great idea.
And they haven't done it. I mean, every administration I go in and say, so, do we have a catalog yet? And they supposedly were going to put up these, what they call totems, where you could go in with your phone and your QR code and, I guess, find the map or whatever. That hasn't been done. So many things that could be done that have not been done. It's kind of pathetic. Anyone else? Loretta.
Designation. Yeah.
So the question was, can we remove the designation?
There, I doubt it. I doubt it. But there's a lot of people in this town, like in Sisakatan, that say, hell no, we don't want this. And they said it from the get-go. Another thing is, when they got the designation, they had a big, fancy party at the Hotel Real. And all the muckety-mucks and the investors and, the business people, the government people were all there, spreading COVID. And they promised that they would have a fiesta for the town. Never happened. The town has been left out of it. And that's one of the big beefs, that this administration, the past administration, intentionally don't listen to the people. The people are screaming to have a voice with the government, and they don't get it. The way they redid Cologne, which is not as bad as a lot of people think if they want, the original cobblestones, killer cobblestones. It's an improvement, but the design that they put in there, to me, was either just being totally insensitive to the feelings of the people, because there's a very strong group that, that we want our cobblestones, or it was actually an intentional slap in the face. They could have made it much more attractive and much more, appealing, and kind of, find a middle ground. When some friends and I went to Comala, that was a couple years ago, and we went out to this hacienda that's outside of town, and it's this wide cobblestone road, and I was driving at that point. I was like, oh, wait, stop, gotta get out, take a picture. They had this wide cobblestone street. It was all just regular, traditional cobblestones, except that it had the tracks in the path that were cemented in. So you could go travel on that, with trucks and Coca-Cola trucks and garbage trucks and, whatever. And it was solid. But you're not, the big complaint is, oh, there's no filtration of the rain. Of course, when the rain comes, it's like a tidal wave, so that whole filtration thing, I think, is a myth. But they could have done something like that, and I actually brought it up with every city official that I thought might listen, and they didn't do it. That's why I think it was almost an intentional slap in the face to these village people that are going like, no, don't do that. Anyway, in terms of getting rid of it, I don't think there's a process. Unless the government says you can't have it anymore. And again, nobody's been canceled since 2009. And only, 3 places? San Miguel transitioned. So, I don't know, but we have a new government coming in at the end of the year, so who knows?
If they come, where will they park?
I'm sorry?
If they come, where will they park?
Oh.
The Pueblo Mágico.
Yeah. Remember that sign that came out said, Ajijic population full? Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.